So let's kick it off. So thank you for joining our direct to customer webinar series this morning. So today we're going to talk about how to build our new channel to from direct to customer. So this is something of a new trend, and I think COVID has boosted the sales directly from manufacturers a lot. So, for example, 1/3 of the people in the past year have actually purchased something directly from manufacturers, not from the retailers, but just directly from the manufacturers. And even when we are speaking, over 57% of the manufacturing brands are actually selling directly to their customers or working on a channel how to actually do that. And that's why we have these series of webinars to go through this new and exciting opportunity, and it might be a missed opportunity if you haven't started with it yet. So yeah, I guess we will go forward. Okay, there's a delay. So before we go into the presentation, just let's get to know each other, who we are presenting here. So I myself, my name is Mart Mäe. I am the country manager for Vaimo International. Gillis and Henrik, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, sure. So my name is Henrik. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer in the group. I work with a senior capacity, helping clients to build out the strategies, and also in the area of direct to consumer. So I'm very looking forward to share some of the insights with you guys today.
Yes, and my name is Gillis Hedlund. I'm a strategist at Vaimo. I've been working with e-commerce for over 10 years now, and I take any opportunity to talk about digital growth. So I'm happy to join here as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
And we just lost the slides for a second.
Yes. Okay.
There we go. I was on me.
Thanks.
And you should have control again there, Mart.
Thank you, Gilles. So before we go into the details, we just do a quick intro about Vaimo and direct to customer, and then we go directly into a topic. And I will try to progress. So our series, it comprises of 3 series, and we take it step by step. So this first webinar, we're focusing on understanding the channel, the direct to consumer, why is it important, why it's a winning strategy to actually invest in it. The second one is about learning from others, and also understanding that how to really build a successful one. And the third one, we will share our best practices and experiences from our project. So in that sense, how to make it successful in a shorter period than at the first time when you go at it. So about Vaimo, who we are. So we are an omnichannel agency. So what it means that we help our clients to deliver from ideation to the actual solution. So for clients come to us with the question, should we invest in a channel like direct to customer? So we help them to find the best optimal way, how to make it sustainable, how to have the best return on investment, to have a supporting strategy and actually execute the solution itself as well. So in that sense, a one-stop shop from ideation to actual delivery of the solution, and actually also running the solution as well. That's to maintaining it and making sure it's a success. So we do it in 14 countries. We have over 500 people, and we have 100% digital commerce focus. So our core of what we do is digital customer experience, yeah, driving success in digital customer experience. And yes, so basically we are driving the direct to customer success globally. Here you can see a few of the brands from Helly Hansen to Jack Daniels, Casio, Dyson, Elan Skis. So very different brands in different countries, different regions. So in that sense, this is what we are focusing on. We have been driving success together with our clients, and we're really happy to share it with you. So with that, I will go over to you guys.
Thank you, Mart. So I'm going to take over from here. So before we talk about why, looking into direct to consumer, I think it's really much important and very important for us to really understand what is the consumer behavior trend that is happening at the moment, and how, of course, how is that impacting also why companies is looking into adopting a direct to consumer strategy. So I'm going to walk through like 5 macro trends that we see is impacting this, and also what we talk with our clients around at the moment, and how they will be able to adapt and also to take on some of these trends into their strategy. So the first one, I think that's really obvious, is that we have kind of seen a big acceleration around COVID. I know that we're super tired talking about this, and for most of us, we just want to move past it and get into and get our daily lives. But this has been the single highest impacting event that kind of accelerated this consumer behavior on going more online. So overnight, I think all of us saw like suddenly stores were closed, and we also as consumers, we didn't want to jump on trains anymore. We preferred to stay at home. So we moved our shopping online. And just one really good example is just to look at Amazon. So in 2020, they grew more than 37% to around 370 billions in dollars. So that's quite a lot. And this is even continuing into 2021. I just saw recent numbers that they managed to grow with an additional 100 billions more just moving into 2021. So I think that's been a big behavior change in us going more online. And this sudden behavioral change that we experienced in the beginning of 2020 really broke the value and the supply chain, and how do companies interact with the consumers, especially in the area of fast-moving consumer goods. So if your business model is selling into retail, that then needs to sell to the consumers, and 80% of the retail channels are closed, what do you do? Right? That having a big impact on your company. The same thing goes really with the food sector. So consumers, was not able to go to restaurants anymore, was not able to, have big parties and so on. So what happens here as well is a lot of food manufacturing companies got into a lot of struggle, because the products that they had, they could not just sit down and just wait. If they were just waiting, it will kind of rot and it will become bad. So what we saw here is also these companies trying to find new business model, going directly to the consumers. So a couple of examples that I saw in the market was companies within meat and within dairy. They started to open direct to consumer models, so own websites or teaming up with other companies, where consumers were able to buy very expensive meat directly from them. And this was the meat that they were used to sell to high-end restaurants before. So I think it was really interesting. And also just in this sector as well, that we saw that, and we talked about this with some of our clients, really, moving into dark and cloud kitchens that we saw in some of the capital cities was also a way for them to start connecting with the consumers as well. So I think the biggest takeaway here is like how COVID accelerated this was that for companies, it kind of created a burning platform that for some of them, they had to go and sell direct to consumer. That was the only option for them actually to start selling the things that they had in stock. Another trend here is also how we as consumers are becoming more digital consumers. what I mean with that is like digital is just becoming default in our daily lives. If we look at our home, things, everything is just becoming more digital. Our washing machines, coffee machines, like even our pets. So did you know that there's a huge transformations going on and just in the pet industry at the moment? It's super fascinating. But I think we're moving into a place that just within a few years, we're able to put chips on our pets and we're able to measure their health data. We're able to tailor their food or stimulation. And God knows if we're also able to start understanding what they're thinking about us as pet owners. I don't want to move into that space, but it's going to be very interesting. So this is just examples on our daily lives. It's just becoming more digital, and it's not like thinking these things now. It does not seem wild. It's just, yeah, this is going to happen. It's just a matter of time when it's going to happen. And with this as well, it really means that brands are moving closer to the consumers, because I can just give you an example. Before, I didn't know the washing machine brand that we have, or I didn't really care. That was something my wife was very interested in. But now I know it's a Samsung. And the reason why I know it's a Samsung is because I have an app on my phone, a Samsung app, where I can monitor the washing machine. It will tell me whatever it's done. So like companies and brands are also getting more opportunities to connect with the consumers and having conversations or engagements that kind of unlocking direct to consumer opportunities. And this is just the daily lives, right? Another topic and another trend is how we as consumers is also taking sustainability more serious. Sustainability-led companies and brands are gaining massive momentum at the moment, and consumers are asking more information, understanding on what is the footprint when I buy these products. And retailers is also investing massively into right now to be able to understand end to end for the product that they sell in the stores, what is the environmental footprint of the store, because consumers start asking these questions like, if I buy this product, what have been the full end-to-end journey for this product, and what is actually the impact and the footprint around that product. So consumers are getting more cautious about the things that they choose. And we can also just see like every manufacturing brand that we're working with from a digital strategy point of view is having sustainability at core of their corporate strategy. It's very seldom that we don't see it. And for those where this is new and they haven't had this as a main focus, going through the traditional sales channels to have retailers picking up and making sure that they take the new brand narrative to market can take a long time. And this is really where direct to consumer channel would offer the possibility for you as a brand or company to change that perception and kind of go to market with a more sustainable focus and agenda. So a lot of interesting things happening in this space, and it's very much linked into the next trend that we see around brand gravitation, about how consumers are kind of reflecting their choices based on the brand and based on, you know, the brand values and based on the political standpoints that they have as well. So now it's not only just a matter of crafting the right product for the right segment. It's also about, you know, what does this brand stand for? I know there's definitely verticals or types of products. If you buy a rubber band, you might not really care that much about how the company behind it, what is their political stance. But I think the barrier for when we start to take that into our consideration when buying is moving all the time. Example here would be Nike, how they involved themselves and how they, in the debate around racism, and they created this Black community commitment program where they're kind of funding and they're using a lot of the athletes into their commercials and so on. I think that's just companies taking a political stance. Patagonia have been for years been very linked into this sustainability topic, right? So if we talk about them, like everybody knows that, yeah, this is the reasons why I buy from them, right? And recently, companies have also been forced to take a political stance against Russia. And I think that goes for us and goes for many companies that really have had to do that, else consumers would gravitate away from them. And a recent study also shows that 65% of Generation Z will spend more than 48% more on products from purpose-driven companies. So what this really means is that companies in the future need to take more control of the brand, because the consumers, they will become more purpose-driven. Again, linking into why is it interesting for companies to be able to engage directly with the consumers. This is one of the main reasons. And then moving into a little bit the last trend impacting everything happening here is like just the sales channels. If we look how consumers are interacting and buying, and of course this have also been accelerated due to COVID, working from home, ordering everything to your doorstep. But we see a massive growth in sales channels like pop-up stores. You have new marketplaces coming up, being able to order and then somebody will pick it up. Even coffee, you know, picking up at the local coffee shop and get it to your front door, right? So what this means is that the sales channels to the consumer is just growing rapidly, and there's new ways for companies to engage with the consumers, and not just thinking about traditional retail stores or old ways of selling. And where this, on one of the hand, is kind of diluting some of the existing channels, on the other hand, is giving new opportunities to get this very easy interaction and engagement with the consumers. And of course, everybody is looking at this space, but it's just evolving quite rapidly. So these five trends, how they get summarized, let me see if I can get it to, here we go. These kind of 5 macro trends, the summary of this is really that adoption of digital have accelerated. So digital is becoming more important and more important channel to the consumers. The future is going to be experience-led. Of course, it's always going to be a matter of having the right product and the right quality and the right price point, but the experience is going to weigh stronger and stronger. Consumers are judging brands on their behavior and their ethics more than ever before. And we will see that just increasing in the future. Going back to the brands and companies, they need to be more in control of that. They cannot outsource that to a sales channel and say, yeah, but we believe that you're going to represent our brand and our company in the best way that's going to link with the expectations of the consumers. So these things combined is, of course, challenging a little bit the traditional value chain of me as a manufacturer. I sell to a wholesaler, then sells to a dealer or reseller, and then takes it to the consumer. And we know, of course, I know that this is how it works still today for 80 or 90% of everything sold, but this is going to change. And the reason why it's going to change is we see this happening. We see manufacturers want to sell direct to consumer. We see wholesalers want to sell direct to consumer. Of course, the retailers and the dealers and so on also want to do that. But if you just look in your industry, I'm pretty sure you will find 2, 3, 5, 6 examples of companies actually running direct to consumer programs, some more ambitious than others. We see it in a lot of different industries that we thought, oh no, this is not going to happen, but it is happening at the moment. This in a combination with some of all these new sales channels coming up and making it easier for manufacturers to say, I can actually start selling my products straight on Amazon. I don't have to build a big team and structure and so on. I take my products, I ship them to the warehouse for Amazon, and now Amazon is selling it direct to the consumer on my behalf, but I'm a bit more in control of the whole end-to-end value chain that I am compared to selling to a wholesaler and then to retail and so on. So this is the main reasons why this is changing, and also why companies are looking into and say, what is our role in this? And we know for a fact, we work with a lot of retailers, and a lot of retailers, they are concerned about this because they see this as well. Like, what is our value in this value chain? And of course, they focus on how can we deliver an even better experience than the wholesalers and the brands and so on, of course. So they're trying to find their own value proposition in this, but they know that this is going to happen and that everybody is going to sell to the consumers. And that's also why the pushback that we saw in the past of, if you as a company wanted to sell to the consumers, your dealers might be very concerned. Yes, they are still today, but it's more accepted today than it is just a couple of years ago, because everybody sees that this movement is happening. And just to give you some examples on what we're kind of seeing is, I find it very interesting to look at the automotive industry. I think this is an industry that just a few years was very true to just keep things as usual and running a very inside out way of running the business. So cars will be designed and they will be build on the plans. And usually what happens is that if it's a BMW, then they decide in each country how much they're going to sell, and then the importers is going to just take those cars in and they're going to sell it. If they don't sell it, or if they don't take the amount that they get told to sell, they're going to get fines on top of it. So they're going to get, so that's a very inside out model, and that's really changing at the moment. And I think it's really interesting to see. And I know everybody talks about the Tesla and how they've innovated, only selling cars online in the beginning, and how it can do digital upsells within the car and so on. But what I find interesting is some of the older players really picking up on this as well. One of them being kind of Volvo, that in 2020 did something that set kind of a new change in the industry. Everybody knew about Tesla, but they do something else. All the big groups, of course, they're looking into how can we get more in control of the whole journey around buying a car. But Volvo actually was the first one taking the decision. So they did two things. They terminated the agreement with the largest dealer network in Sweden and say, no, you're not allowed to sell Volvo cars anymore. That was a big revenue that they said no to. Secondly, they went to the market and then they acquired the second biggest dealer network and rebranded it to their own stores. And the main motivation is what they kind of said in the press release that you see here, is that they want to control the end-to-end customer journey for you selecting a car, buying a car, and so on. We also see Michelin is, they produce tires. They also are able to own the full journey end-to-end. So they own the wholesalers. They also have fitting centers. But what's interesting as well is that they apply the business model on top. So if you can now buy a tire from Michelin on their website. You can buy it in some of the countries. You can then select a local fitting center that they have pre-agreements with. You select the time for you to get your tire fitted. They send the tire to that fitting center. You pay Michelin, but they kind of control the journey end-to-end. And they make sure that the quality is going to be good enough. You go to the fitting center, you get your tire fitted, and you're out the door. So that's also an example of a manufacturer saying, we actually want to take control of the journey end to end. And instead of just selling it to the dealers or the fitting centers, the consumer is buying it straight from us, and we make sure that it works end to end. Just a couple of other examples. So looking into fast-moving consumer goods, a lot of interesting things is happening here. Nestle, one of the biggest in the world within food and drink. So they have all these brands like Kit Kat, Nespresso, L'Oréal, and so on. I think it was quite interesting to see what their expectations is to their direct-to-consumer offering. And that is really to move to about 25% in 2020, right? And this is, of course, a couple of years back. But this just shows about what is the ambition levels in these companies. Another example that we actually work on with Heineken is they wanted to test out, can we sell direct to consumer? Like, can we solve the challenge of you sitting on the beach or you sitting at home and you lack beers and you just, you need it. So this build an app and a website, we were able to go in and you'll be able to just buy beers and all kind of accessories or kind of upsells into that. And then within 60 minutes, somebody's going to come and knock on your door and then deliver it straight to your doorstep. So that's a completely different business model, but it's like really interesting to see how these companies are taking this to market. Another good example is really a lot of these digital born direct-to-consumer brands that never have any stores or anything like that, but they basically found it online. So if you go to the gym and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure that you see somebody wearing this Gymshark logo on their shirt. It's one of the biggest brands in the industry. They were founded in 2012 by this guy called Ben, and he was just making shirts at home, and it's quite an interesting success story. But they're quite big today, so they have more than 10 million followers online on their social media, and they recently got sold. They were sold a couple of years ago for quite a lot of money. I got a big investment into the company. So they sell globally today, and they founded just online and fully digital. We see the same thing in brands going to market only on Amazon. So they kind of see an opportunity in the market, and they just launched on Amazon as the first step. And then, of course, they're building their own channels afterwards because they want to be in control of that. We see brands being founded on Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and so on. So, and it all goes back to that digital is just a very easy and convenient way to engage with the consumers. So with that, I was just wanted to give you a little bit of perspectives on what is really happening on the consumer side, and why is it that the consumers is starting to engage more directly with the brands, and what is the responses we kind of see in the market into that. So with this, I'm going to be heading back to you, Gillis. That's going to drive the next section.
All right, thank you very much. Really interesting. I think that what I'm going to do now is look a little bit more at the motivations behind what is actually driving this direct-to-consumer shift that we can see in the market. Let's see, there we go, if I'm able to switch my slides. So in this section, I'm going to try to paint the picture for you guys, showing how these three forces of macro trends on the one hand, consumer motivations, and also brand motivations are all kind of working together to create this perfect storm driving the direct-to-consumer movement. So first, I'm going to jump into a couple of data slides here to show you a little bit about macro trends. So first of all, I'm going to look at digital acceleration in general. So there's this article called How COVID-19 Has Pushed Companies Over the Technology Tipping Point and Transformed Businesses Forever from McKinsey, which is a very ambitious title, where they surveyed around 900 C-level executives and C-level executives and senior managers in a range of regions, different industries, varying company sizes, and all with different specialties. But what they found was remarkably similar. So in the report, the argument goes that COVID-19 more or less leapfrogged technical development between 3 to 4 years. And this is more or less overnight as COVID struck, right? So keep in mind that these findings that I present here on the screen are for 2020, and this digital acceleration has really not slowed down since then. I haven't really seen any kind of scientific number on it, but today there's like a general consensus around saying that we went through about a 7-year jump in terms of technology during the COVID period. And on the other hand, I'm not even sure that you can talk about jumps anymore. I think we're just like reset on a new trajectory and a new speed in general. So measuring digitization today by the standards of pre-COVID is almost becoming irrelevant. It's like we used to be measuring how many hours it took to go a kilometer, and now we're measuring kilometers per hour instead. So it's really a different world that we're living in today. If we look closer at some of the changes brought out by COVID, you'll see that some of them are more relevant to the direct-to-consumer channel than others, right? So at number 2 here, so maybe I should explain the context of this slide first of all. So these are executives that say that their companies reacted to change a lot quicker than they thought possible before pre-COVID. So if you see the expected number on the second most left column, and then you see the actual number on the following column, that gives a factor of how much faster they actually reacted than what they were expected to in the market. And there at number 2, right after remote work, by the way, so we all know how impactful remote work was, I think, from the last couple of years, is the increasing demand for online purchasing. So coming in at number 4, we see something else that we in e-commerce business have been talking about for decades, right? Using technology to harvest and to harness data to support your business decision-making process. So let's hold on to that one because we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Obviously, there is a more general digital maturity. This ties into what Henrik was talking about before. We start as customers having higher expectations. We're already online savvy customers. And right now we start not only to expect it, but frankly, we're surprised when it's not up to the standard that we expect. And then finally, something linked directly to e-commerce, the rise of the discussions around last mile delivery, which has been a buzzword in the business for some time. Last mile used to be something the consumer would do themselves from the store to their house. Nowadays, I don't think anyone here raises an eyebrow when they see a delivery car or a bike or a scooter or some kind of innovative electric vehicle park outside your building and make a delivery. So I think all of these are both relevant and important, but these are the ones that I highlighted that are specifically worth mentioning in the context of direct to consumer. And again, this is from the same report. So what they say here is that the largest shifts during the crises are also among the most likely to stick to the recovery, right? So basically what they're saying is that there's this kind of shock doctrine. So that means like the system is getting this shock to change its direction. And a lot of that change is happening all around us, but it's not necessarily the small stuff that's going to define this era. It's the big impactful shifts that are here to stay. And right at the top of this list are the changing consumer expectations. So of course, we see a lot of other drivers here as well, but once the consumers have gotten used to a new way of interacting and to consume, those expectations will stick with us. So I deep dived a little bit into this talking about digital acceleration, and I'm not going to go as deep into some of these other issues, even though I kind of want to paint the picture that there are several macro trends working in tandem here. So we have the COVID accelerate the digital or the digital acceleration by COVID for, if we let's say 7 years-ish, with no sign of regression so far. We see that business to business buyers are getting younger. Today, the average buyer is born in the late 80s, which actually makes them younger than I am. And we can see that we don't talk about Moore's law so much anymore, but generally it's still valid. So technology is getting twice as good and half as expensive every year. And that's still a valid statement. So that's really a part of democratizing this kind of technology that 10 years ago was really only available to the software giants of Amazon and Microsoft. Today is at the fingertips or the fingers of most businesses. So on top of this, we also see the general growth of digital commerce. And this looks different in every market, but in general, we've gone from a market cap of somewhere around 2-3%, probably 10 years ago, to above 10%, and in some what do you call it? Forgot the word. In some industries and in some regions, it's above 50%, of course. We also see that business to business digital commerce takes on over the patterns of business to consumer retail. So a lot of what was happening in business in e-commerce was driven by the retailers, and they've really driven this advancement during the past decade. But now we can see a lot of the business to business players taking over those tactics and implementing them into their own direct to consumer channels. We also have, of course, a lot of things happening in the world around us. One of the effects of this is the global resource scarcity, creating a lot of pressure in a lot of different businesses to optimize supply chain and to sort of optimize for agility. And that also drives into sort of digitizing the entire business model, right? So if that's one part of it, then that leads into the customer perspective and what's driving this adoption from the customer perspective. I know that Henrik was talking about this a little bit earlier, but already in 2017, this was just a fact. 55% of surveyed UK consumers preferred to buy directly from the brand, according to this report by the Astound Commerce Global Brand Research, right? Buying directly from the brand, that was already becoming more and more commonplace. 3/4 or 73% of UK manufacturers were selling some or all of their products they manufacture directly to end consumers and users. I know that we heard a number previously, about 57%. This will obviously be different between geographies as well, right? But these 73%, they can be compared to 56% 5 years ago. And even though I don't have the figures for 2022, I believe that the next time we see a report like this, it will be closer to 90. So this is being driven by a number of factors. The main one being that consumers are looking to connect with a brand and be part of that brand story, which is something that you don't really get from a retailer in the same way. So that kind of boils down to the security and the comfort around product I can't even pronounce the word, knowing that a product is real, right? You know that a product will be genuine if it comes from the actual brand. It's also a question of consumer protection. As a consumer, you know that you're in a far better position if anything could go wrong with the product, if you're dealing directly with the brand, than if you have to go through an intermediary like a retailer. You also know that you're going to get an up-to-date product and you're going to get up-to-date information when buying directly from a brand. It's going to be the latest one. It's going to be up-to-date. And where the retailers can suffer from delays or in different ways, you can't have the same sort of trust in a retailer always to sell you the most latest version of a product. Now, selling online gives a brand the opportunity to tailor their end-to-end customer experience, which is essential also for differentiating yourself in e-commerce. If you have a strong brand story to tell, you can use this to support and reassure your consumers all the way through their buying journey to make them feel part of your brand when searching and purchasing your products. And by doing this, you kind of also open the door to further customization and personalization as you get to know your consumers better and better. Whereas the consumers buy it from you regularly, you can see the data recorded from the past purchases, and you can make future purchases more customizable to them. So this is kind of linking back to what we talked about the data to guide your business decisions on the previous slide. The other side of this, of course, is that as a consumer, if you have a bad experience buying directly from the brand, this will reflect badly on you, both on the product and you as an organization. However, you can only be in control of the customer journey that you yourself provide. So by only selling through your retail and your distribution channels, you're actually giving your full brand experience to a third party. And you're placing a lot of trust in that third party to represent your brand in the full customer experience. So according to another research study by Insight and PwC in 2016, 94% of senior level executives believe that personalization is going to be critical to reaching consumers in the future. And 28% of surveyed businesses going directly to consumers stated that they would actually put down more focus into creating a more personalized product and personalized experience. And these numbers are a couple of years old now, and they are steadily increasing as the availability of this kind of technology is spreading. So on top of those factors that we just talked about, like project legitimacy, customer protection, and up-to-date product information, I usually talk about these 5 pillars being the driving forces behind consumer motivations in general. So you have the channel relevancy, right? Is the channel relevant in terms of accessibility and presence? Are you where your consumers are? Trust, of course, linked to what we just talked about. But do I, as a consumer, trust this brand? Do I trust this experience? Then convenience is the third. Is this a convenient way for me to complete my purchase? Is it giving me what I want or need at the right time or at the right place? This also comes into the ease of purchase. Is it physically easy for me to complete the purchase? Can I do it in a way that is easy for me? Is it quick? Is it frictionless? Can I use my preferred way of payment? Etc. And something that you as a brand community can do is actually offer this sense of personal identification, which is really another macro trend in terms of sort of lifestyle consumption, where what we buy as consumers to a larger degree in recent years have defined us. So if I'm going to be defined by what I consume, then I'm also identifying myself with the brand. And the closer I can get to that brand, the more that plays into my sense of identification. And I think that is also a big driver between why consumers gravitate towards buying directly from the producer or from the brand. Finally, there's a lot of motivation from the company or from the brand as well, and these are several ones that play in. So of course, there's a financial perspective. By owning the entire consumer life cycle, you can create a customer lifetime value, and you can kind of optimize for customer lifetime value in a way that you just can't do when you're selling through the retail channel. Your shorter supply chain will, of course, mean that you have different options in terms of increasing your margin. That is one of the major what do you call it? One of the major arguments for going direct to consumer is that you're cutting off the middleman, right? But also you have the opportunity to gather direct consumer feedback, and that again plays into being able to maintain a better market understanding. So financially, there's a lot of reasons to go this way, but there's also a lot of reason relationally, creating a relationship with your consumer. So in going direct to consumer, you actually have a one-to-one relationship with them, and you can have a full ownership of that customer journey. And if that means that you have 10 times the amount of interactions with your consumers, everything from guiding them how they search information, how they complete the purchase, their attitudes after purchase, the support, etc. If you have 10 times the interactions, that will lead to 10 times the insights. So you will have a whole completely different way of analyzing your consumer behavior and a completely different understanding of them. And of course, you can base this relationship on your brand core values. So we talked about sustainability before, and you can actually build a platform and a relationship on those brand values in a much more deeper and meaningful way than going through a retail channel or going through a marketplace. Also, we talk about innovation or maybe evolution. I like to talk about needs-based innovation, where in the direct-to-consumer context, you really own the feedback cycle, and you can make decisions about developing the business based on the direct-to-consumer interactions. This means that you can develop new products and services based on actual tangible consumer needs. But you can also hedge your bets a bit by releasing smaller and faster direct-to-consumers in order to realize your product market fit in a more experimental way than you can do in the retail channel. Of course, it all kind of boils down to brand equity, right? And what you can do when you have this direct relationship with the consumer is that you can actually affect these sort of 4 pillars of brand equity in terms of your loyalty, the awareness of your brand associations, and the perceived quality of your brand. And that is, at the end of the day, within your control to communicate about when you have the relationship directly to the consumer. So you can kind of look at it like this. If you put the traditional business model of a manufacturer going to retail compared to a digital business model going direct to consumer, right? So in terms of reach, in a traditional business model, you will reach the target audience of your retailers. In a digital world, your reach is potentially unlimited, and most of all, you're in control of it, and you can direct it, and you can understand where you will unearth your customers. Your customer loyalty is also possible because, again, the relationship is directly with you and not your reseller. You will have comprehensive real-time access to your consumer, and you're not limited by insights brought to you by a third party. You have full control of your pricing. In a traditional model, and I know that in a retail model that many of our clients are working on, there is no way to fully control the price to market. However, you are able to do it in your own channel. And we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. That's a big part of the next webinar, talking about pricing strategies. But you can actually use that to your benefit in a direct-to-consumer context as well. Speed to market, of course, you can release fast, you can release small, you can control it. You have a much faster time to market than if you go through the regular channel. You can choose what to sell and to whom when you control that decision. In the retail channel, you will have to get buy-in, or you will have a buyer buying your products and then selling them, which will usually mean that you can sell your top selling products, but it's very hard to get your margin products to market. This changes completely when you own the channel yourselves. And it also opens up a model for you to actually sell accessories or high margin services around your products to build up a different part of your business there. Of course, the margin is a really, really high factor, and that is within your control in the digital model. And the volume, this one is actually quite interesting, because in the retail model, it's kind of you open or you close the tap, it's all or nothing. While if you own that channel, you can decide how you want to experiment. You can sell everything online, or you can start with a very limited, you can test it out. We even see brands going into bigger brands like Gillette or Segway, when they were still a player, going into Kickstarter and Indiegogo and creating really sort of small, limited products that they are selling direct to consumer just to test the market, and they own that control instead of giving it away. So this is not to say that there's not a value in the traditional sort of model of doing business. But if you are limited, you're limiting yourself to only conducting your business that way, there's a lot of business on the table that you're leaving. And with that, it's kind of time to start concluding our session for today. And I hope that you've all got some food for thought. Now, hopefully some of you are already thinking about the opportunities that direct-to-consumer could represent for your business. However, if it was risk-free, then there wouldn't be much to think about, would there? So there are certainly risks around direct-to-consumer, particularly for companies who already have a strong business-to-business channel. And most of these risks are in one way or another associated with one of these three topics, right? So channel cannibalization, your organizational capacity, or the digital ecosystem. So we're talking about things like pricing, we're talking about things like the product range, we're talking about things like how do you make sure that you're not alienating your retail channel, and how can you collaborate across channels? How can you work with your internal sales organization versus your digital sales organization? How are you splitting up your internal budgets? There's a lot of internal policies that you have to think about here. And also, of course, the digital ecosystem of here's where you want to go, but how do I do it right? How do I not get lost in this tech jungle? And how am I making the right technological decision to support my roadmap and my business going 5 or 7 years into the future, and not just for the here and now, but still realizing an ROI. So those are some of the things that will be, went a little fast. Those are some of the things that we're going to be diving into next time. So it's quite convenient that our next webinar coming up, where we'll be focusing on how to avoid the pitfalls of channel cannibalization. So I encourage you all to sign up for it. And of course, if you enjoyed today's webinar, you're more than welcome to share it with your network. I believe we'll have a recorded version of this up before long. In our third webinar coming up, we're going to dive a bit deeper into the mechanics and bring a couple of our lessons that we've learned over the years, working with a wide range of companies establishing a digital direct-to-consumer channel. But with that, I would really like to thank you guys for listening. And I know that we have a couple of minutes for Q&A. And with that, I can hand back over to you, Mart.